Things started. Thank all of you for coming. We have about an hour, maybe a little bit more, depending on questions from the audience today, of a presentation about wildfire risk in our area and what we can do about that. So, Roger, we'll start with a little video. No, let's just go through these until we get to the panel. Okay. Now we'll talk. So I'm John Van Dorn. I'm going to be the MC for this event today. My job is to keep us on track and not to fall off the stage. Thank you, Debbie. And we have a panel of experts here today with us. Next name is Rex Alford. Rex is a gray-haired gentleman here. Rex spent...
Not the only one.
Not the only one. Well, one has a hat on. Rex spent his entire career fighting fires for the federal government. He was also the logistics chief on the Smoky Fire. And if you've been here any length of time in the community, you know about that fire. So he's one of our experts today. Next fellow, the guy without any hair, is Joe Burgett. He's the assistant fire chief at Platte Canyon Fire Protection District. Joe has been fighting fires also his entire career. He just came back from Virginia, Shenandoah Valley, where he was helping fight the fire there, which was, I believe, a record fire for the state of Virginia. And so another expert. Dr. Craig, who does not like to be called an expert at a wildfire event. She's our new superintendent at the school district. She's going to be talking about wildfire safety as it relates to our kids. And then the name that's not on here is Gene, the guy with the hat on. Gene Stanley is the head of emergency management planning for Marsh County. So let's talk a little bit about risk in our area. See, I'm finding my first misspelling. It's CWPP. There's something called a Community Wildfire Protection Plan that nearly every community has. Park County has one for our community. The Bailey area is priority one in the county's Community Wildfire Protection Plan. It's the community at highest risk due to the relatively high density of development in the Bailey area. And by Bailey area, I mean from Grant to Pine Junction. And it is also an area where we have intensity fuel loads in terms of forest. And we have the most people. We're about 60% of the county's population, again, from Grant to Pine Junction. We are also on the federal registry of communities at high risk of a wildfire. So, skip ahead. So we had a couple of near misses here. We had the High Meadow fire, we had the Snaking fire, and at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Rex to talk us through some of the risk elements and why our forests are not as healthy as they might look.
So what I'm going to talk about is how we got to where we are and what that means to us, why it's important. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We have a mic up here that we can hand out so that everybody can hear you talk. Can you all hear me? Yeah. So I was also the logistics chief on the High Meadow fire. So how did we get where we are today? In the late 1800s, early 1900s, they came through here and they creamed off every bit of merchantable timber that they could get their hands on. Okay? About the same time, unfortunately, hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Unfortunately, we started a full suppression program about the same time. Okay? It seemed like a good idea at the time, and like a lot of things, it's not a black and white deal. Okay? It's a lot of depends in fire management. So then what happened was we had these fuels that built up because we had no more fire. I'm going to talk to that in just a second. We had no more fire to clear it out, and it's not feasible to treat it mechanically on that broad a scale. Okay? We just can't afford to do it. So what does that really mean? So a lot of it depends on what kind of a fuel type you're in, fuel model. That's fire speak for what kind of plants and vegetation are there and how do they burn. Okay? So I'm going to primarily talk about ponderosa pine. I'm going to talk a little bit about logical pine because there are two different fuel types and they burn differently. So we're in a mixed conifer here, and what that means is we're at the top end of the ponderosa pine stands. So down in the true ponderosa pine stands, they're primarily ponderosa pine. And ponderosa pine is a frequent return fire interval system. In typical ponderosa pine stands, if everything's left alone, you'll see a fire entry every 3 to 25 years. They tend to be low intensity surface ground fires. So what does that mean? From a firefighting standpoint, what these guys are concerned about is if the flame lengths are less than 4 feet tall, they can direct attack it with hand tools and be very successful. If it gets over that, they have to go to mechanized equipment, and if it starts crowning, just get the heck out of the way because you've got to wait until you get a break. Okay? You can get it back down on the ground. Is that fair?
Very fair. And what is crowning?
Crowning is when everything's burning from, crowning, there's two types of crown fires. Crowning is when the crowns of the trees are burning. And if you have close spacing between the crowns, you can have what they call an independent crown fire, and it just moves from tree to tree to tree, drops embers on the ground, and then the ground catches up. The other kind of crown fire that you have is a ground-supported crown fire, where it's not quite enough, conditions aren't quite right to make it roll through the grounds independently, but it's good. There's enough intensity from what's burning on the ground that it's taking everything out as it goes. An independent ground fire will move as fast as the wind blows. But that's only one of the problems, because if you've got stuff like that going on, you also have spotting. And we can model spotting based on vegetation type and the winds and yada, yada, yada. So you can get spotting several miles in front of a crown fire. Okay? So it's not just enough to stop the main fire, you have to pick up all those spots. The complexity of fighting fire under those conditions is extreme. It requires huge resources. So I digress. So where we're at here is, yeah, and I'll talk. Where we're at here is we haven't had, except for the large fires we talked about. You know, by the way, if you want to get a little more worried, if we had a good upslope from the, not the Smoky Bear, before that. Before that. It was before all of those. It was Buffalo Creek, pardon me. Buffalo Creek. You could guess this, but if Buffalo Creek had a good upslope, it would have rolled right over this community. Quite possibly. Not guaranteed, but quite possibly, right? Okay. So, and then we had the Hayman fire. And if we'd had a good upslope with that, it probably would have made a good run at us. The only advantage we had there is we'd already had high meadow, and we had a big fire scar in between, where when that fire hits that fire scar, we can get it down on the ground, and we have a lot better success picking it up. So we've been dodging the ball, folks. On high meadow, when I was the logistics chief on that one too. So I was working there, and my wife and the neighbors were sitting around, and they said, my wife used to fight fire too. And they said, well, Alice, how long would it take for that fire to get, we live up County 53 at my Casey Ranch. And he said, how long would it take for the fire to get here? And she looked at it, and she went, well, if all the winds were right and everything, oh, maybe 3 hours. Okay? So, now we have some great safety zones up there and stuff, so they were okay. But, anyway, so you kind of get a feel for how close we've come. And we've had some problems like high meadow and like snake that are immediately in our backyard. Okay? So what kind of a fire occurrence do we have up here? Well, the fire return interval in this mixed conifer runs up to about 40 years. Okay? So let's see, 2016 from 1900 from 2016, that's like 116 years. Okay? So how far out of cycle are we? Okay? We're way out of cycle, so it could happen any time. Probably won't happen this spring because we've had a real wet year. But sooner or later, it's just a matter of when, not if. Okay? So what can we do about it up here? And we've got this really nice slide up here. This demonstrates a lot of what I'm talking about in the Ponderosa Pines here. So these three pictures are exactly the same place, from exactly the same angle. This one, obviously, 1909. This one is 1948, 1989. This is what's been happening to us here. Only because we're in a mixed conifer, it's a little more, it's exacerbated a little bit. It's a little more extreme. So this is what it should look like. Now, that's not quite true up here, but this is what it should look around like if you want to be safe around all of our homes, with the exception of some north slopes that you can still achieve a lot of that, and lodgepole pine stands, but you can still open them up. This is what it should be looking like. That's what we need to try and achieve, because then when the fire comes rolling at a stand like this one here, so like Joe, if you run fire at this stand like in 1909, it's going to go to the ground, and you're going to have 4-foot flame lengths or less. And these guys are going to be very successful at picking it up. Okay? So does that matter to you if there's a huge fire 3 miles away from you and you're downwind? You bet your booties it does. Because you're going to get spotted. And you're probably going to get spot fires around your house. And if you keep the intensity down, anybody with a garden hose can put them out. That's assuming that. Yes, sir.
Joe, which one of these pictures most realistically represents a natural Ponderosa forest?
This one, right there.
So we're much thicker around here than it is in
Oh.
the natural state.
We're so far out of cycle. There are places here that I would not live. I live in a reasonably, and we've done fire mitigation in the KZ, but even before that, I lived in a very defensible spot. When we drove up here, my wife and I were just looking around, and we drove up that road just to the, if you face the fire station, it goes up the hill just to the left.
Delwood?
Yeah, Delwood. We drove up Delwood, and I'll never forget, we got to the top, we were just following the real estate signs of the house. We got to the top, and there was this real nice house sitting at the top of this heavily wooded, dense, dead down slope. And I'll never forget, my wife looked at it and she went, huh, nice house, too bad it's a loser. And I went, yeah, in good conscience, I couldn't leave my family in that house. Okay, and we've got a lot of that around here. You know, and that's what John was talking about earlier. So, so what we need to do, whose responsibility is? Well, on my property, I mitigated my own land. Okay, and it's my belief that that's our responsibility. Then the government needs to mitigate buffer areas. Okay, so that we can get the fire on the ground, so that we can control it as it comes to our properties. Now you notice I didn't say if, I said when, because it will happen. Let's see, so as you can see, this is more of the concept that I was talking about. You need to get some distance in those trees. Ponderosa pine is fire adapted. It grows a thick bark that's resistant to fire, and if you have frequent fire coming in, it kills the lower branches. They drop off and burn off in the next time you have a fire. So what we have done in our subdivision is we've gone through and artificially created that situation on our properties. Okay? So, and that's what I was talking about earlier. If we can keep it on the ground and keep the flame wind sort of 4 feet, these guys can pick it up pretty darn fast. So, high ignition risk. So we've got human caused and we've got natural causes. You're probably all familiar with the Smoky Bear stuff. Put your campfires out. If you smoke, don't throw your butts out. If you back into a high grass stand with a catalytic converter on a truck, it can start a fire, yada, 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 these kinds of things. Okay, there's lots of different ways that it can happen. An arcing power line, a squirrel arcing the power line can start a fire. Okay? And then you can lose controlled burns, but among other things, I was a type 1 burn boss, and that meant that I could manage the most complex type burns. So the only thing I like better than putting fires out is starting, okay? So I used to go out and burn thousands of acres at a time. And I was lucky, because I had an old burn boss tell me, it's not a question of if you lose a burn, it's a question of when you lose a burn. Well, I never lost it, so I quit while I was ahead. Okay? It's very complex and challenging, but I'll go back to what I said earlier. If we need to modify the fuels, we cannot modify all the fuels manually or mechanically. So at some point in time, we have to reintroduce fire back into the ecosystem, or we will have these unnatural conditions and we will lose property. And hopefully we won't lose any lives. But that will happen, and it has already happened. So we've got proximity to roads, unattended campfires, discarded cigarettes. So then, did you know that this is one of the highest lightning incidence areas in the United States? Okay, lightning starts fire. It's one of the primary causes. And drought. Right now we're not in a drought, but we've been in some drought cycles. We're in a real long-term drought cycle, and I was pretty worried. When High Meadow started, my wife and I were walking out the back pasture a couple of days before, and she was going, boy, it smells like firewood. And what happens if it gets really dry and drought-stricken, and ponderosa pine actually smells like vanilla. and everything crunches. And we were going, man, it's just, well, I hope we get some rain, we're gonna have fire. A couple days later, we had the high meadow fire. I did want to mention one other thing. So I don't know if you believe in climate change or not, but they're projecting that we're going to see a 2-degree temperature rise, which will exacerbate the potential for drought. I said potential, there's no guarantees. And there's some things going on that you need to pay attention to. Everybody heard about the fire up in Canada. It's completely out of cycle for that area. It's not unusual for that area to burn like that, but this time of year, it's completely out of cycle. It shouldn't be burning like that this time of year. So whether you believe in that or not, we've got some weird weather patterns that are different than we've seen before, and they're changing, okay? And what's going to happen for sure, I don't think they really know, but it looks like we're going to have some problems in that area. So we also have high values of risk here.
So I'll talk a little bit about this.
Good.
So here in our area, we've got, again, 60% of the population here in the Bay Area, Grant to Pine Junction, over 4,000 housing units, actually closer to 5,000 housing units in that entire area. If you look at Dean Stanley's got a very thick, expensive book that details the value at risk in our area. It's over $1 billion at risk. If we have a big event and just lose 10% of that, that's over $100 million. That would be a huge impact for our community, a huge impact to the school as well, because we don't have the extra housing units to absorb the people that would be displaced. And when I talk about a big event, I leave that up a bit. When I talk about a big event, I think what we're talking about is losing 100, 200, 300 homes and possibly lives in our area. So it's very important that we be concerned about that, even if there's not smoke in the air. There's a joke at Platte Fire that people only get concerned about wildfire when there's actual smoke in the air, instead of 2 years ahead of time when they could have done something about it. The other thing that is, I think, somewhat unique to our area, and I've talked to IREA about this. We've got a high voltage line that serves North Park County, and it feeds into substations. There's a substation in Grant, there's one in Shawnee, there's one in Bailey, actually near Hog Heaven, and then there's another one at Schaefer's Crossing that serves part of Jefferson County and part of Park County. If we lose that, then we lose those substations. So the recent outage that we had of 6 hours or so, that was the high power line, and it took out several substations. So we had a lot of homes without power. Talking to IREA, what would happen, and I'll give the example of the homes off of 4347, because we've got like 2,100 homes, maybe 5,000 people just off of that one-way in, one-way out road. If we got a big event going out there, they would shut the power off to the distribution line that serves the homes, serves the 2,000 or so homes, until the fire was under control. And they shut it off because it's a danger to our firefighters to have power in those lines at that time. And then if we lost 3, 4, 5, as they talked in utility speak, poles, let's say a quarter of a mile, it could be worse than that. Then they bring in a team that just works day and night until they get it back up again. They put new poles in and restring the lines. So that's another 4 or 5 days. So if it just takes out a distribution line of fire, then maybe we're looking at a week, maybe 2 weeks without power. And for us in this community, that means no water because we're on wells and septic systems. if any of you need power for health reasons, it's a good idea to have a backup generator. But that's an extra threat that we're looking at. The other thing is we have phone line infrastructure both above and below ground, so we're apt to lose phone service as well. The new cell tower out 43, that doesn't ping off of other towers and communicate that way. It drops to the ground and goes to hard lines. So that could be down as well. So we could be completely without cell phone or telephone service in pretty large areas if the fire's in the right place. Again, if we've got a couple of 1,000 acres and 300 homes gone, that's going to impact property values and tourism in the area until we rebuild. So what's next? So there's the risk and how we got to where we are today over the last 150 years or so. So what can we do? I'm going to have my friend Joe stand up and talk about.
Hopefully I don't need a microphone. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. Much better attendance than we had last year, and I appreciate everybody coming out today. We get a lot of questions about the Smoky the Bear signs coming in and out of the district. What do they mean? How accurate are they? And when are those actually updated or not? All of the information that we put into that is cataloged by the U.S. Forest Service. The information that we pull off of that is through the Pike San Isabel's website and the Pueblo Interagency Dispatch Center website, and they track local fuel model conditions, how many fires are currently actively going locally, statewide, regionally, and nationally, which all kind of affects the greater scope of our ability to be able to manage and maintain control of fires and the number of suppression folks that we would have available to us. Middle of the winter, when we got a lot of snow on the ground, we got a lot of precipitation going on, the accuracy of those signs, it's hard to keep up with. So it's kind of a difficult time throughout winter when those are accurate. If we're looking at a prolonged dry spell through the winter, winter months are actually one of our most fire-prone times because all of the fuels are cured and they're not accepting moisture anymore. So until those fuels are covered with snow, we really have a vulnerable fire season in the winter months. So as we're looking, early winter, September, October, November, December, before we start seeing the influx of moisture that we get, those signs are very accurate and updated on a regular basis. We'll supersede those signs at times with our fire ban signs, local fire district fire ban sign, as well as the county will also enact countywide fire bans. What does it mean? As those signs go from low to moderate to high to very high to extreme, when we're at the low and moderate end of those, are times when we're going to be looking at allowing people to still have campfires and still have slash pile burns to be able to consume some of the fuels on their property. As we begin to hit high, very high, and extreme, we'll eliminate the ability for any open flames within the fire protection district. The county can add another layer above that and give us a countywide fire ban, which is typically when we begin to see the majority of the fire districts in the county in fire ban situations. That's when the county sheriff will enact a countywide burn ban, which gives us a little bit of teeth. If it's a district-wide burn ban, I can come out and tell you, put your fire out and spray some water on it, and we're done. If it becomes a countywide fire ban, then we can request the county deputy to come out and write you a ticket for up to $1,000 for having an unsafe fire during a countywide burn ban. Is there anything that you should do? Monitor those signs. And if you look at the sign and it says very high and there's 3 feet of snow on the ground, just realize that Mother Nature changed before we got the sign changed. Or if you're looking at the sign and it says low and it hasn't snowed for a week and stuff's starting to dry out, just realize that we haven't updated those signs yet. As we begin to get into the fire season, which is where we're at now, Those signs are updated every 24 hours. We check the fire weather every 24 hours. Not only are the signs updated, but also we update that on our website, plattecanyonfire.com, and we also update that on our Facebook page, Platte Canyon Fire Protection District. So we're very good at avenues to check those out. 3 programs for you and what they mean. CodeRED being the first of those. How many folks here are familiar with what CodeRED is? How many folks are not familiar with what CodeRED is? About a 50-50 mix. CodeRED is an easy program you can sign up with through the county for notifications of wildland fire events and or emergency events in the immediate area. Ready, set, go. I put a pack on everybody's seat, and if you would like to take that with you, I encourage you to take it with you. If you'd like to take a couple for your neighbors or for your friends and family, feel free to do so as well. And then Firewise Communities. Firewise Communities and Ready, Set, Go work in conjunction with each other. Firewise Communities is more of a prevention and being prepared prior to a fire, being active in our community. Ready, Set, Go takes it the next few steps as far as actually having a working plan for the individual homeowners as far as what we do when the fire comes to our community. Because you should already be ready for it, and that's what Firewise does. CodeRED works off of a notification system passed down through the local fire agencies and or law enforcement, depending on the type of emergency. We can request and communication sends out a notification to a geographic area or to an entire portion of the county to notify you either of floods, continuing snow, fire, whatever the emergency is. Today's topic is fire. What you would get is you would get one of 3 different levels of notification. Level 1 is just to notify you that there is a fire burning near KZ Branch. Fire units are on scene and we're actively suppressing the fire. For some folks, that is the notification to go ahead and leave. There's no harm in going out to Loaf and Jug or down to Cutthroat, spending a little bit of local money and getting out before the fire becomes something that we can't manage. Those are things that we need to educate on and we need to talk about. You know, when's a day that I should be considering that? Today may not be that day. It's been raining for the last 2 days. We've had a little bit of lightning, so the potential of having a fire is there, but the potential of that fire growing and evolving is low. Let's put this into the middle of the summer. Red flag warning day, we haven't had rain in weeks, and we've had continued prolonged drought and dry conditions. Those are times where that's time to just go. Level 2 notification is time to go. Level 3 is you should have gone when we told you to go at level 2, because the firefighters are probably also looking for safe haven as well. Because the fire has begun to outflank us and to progress faster than we're able to suppress. At that point in time, it's a total evacuation, mandatory evacuation to the area. Once you've evacuated, the roads are closed, you would not be allowed back into your home. Colorado is not a state that we can mandate that you have to leave unless you're under the age of 18. If you're under the age of 18, we can request law enforcement to come out and assist in evacuation of younger kids. Typically, when it gets to that point, parents go with them. When those evacuation notices come, it's paramount for us. Our first priorities in firefighting, we will suppress fires having provided for firefighter and public safety first. So as long as we can adequately look at a fire situation and understand that our firefighters are going to have safe haven and the ability to be able to get in and out and do their job adequately and safely, and then we've provided for safety of the public that's inside that fire perimeter, meaning we've evacuated them, it gives us a lot more latitude and a lot more ability to be able to fight a fire. CodeRED, one of the biggest things on CodeRED is making sure that you've signed up everybody in your family for it. A year or so ago, we had the opportunity, thanks to the school district, to be able to get into the middle school and start talking with our middle school students about wildland fire and the Ready, Set, Go program and being prepared for evacuations. There's about 60% of our middle school students that stay at home during the summer by themselves. You know, mom and dad are at work and they're home alone. There's not many middle school students that drive. actually probably zero legally. But one of the questions that I asked in one of our recent preparedness drills at the station was not only how many adults have signed up for CodeRED, but how many adults that have children that stay at home have signed up their children's phone devices for CodeRED. And that's a reality that we need to be looking at. If you've chosen the fact that your kids are mature enough to stay at home alone during the summer, it's just a stark reality, they do. Then we need to make sure that we give them the ability to be notified of an emergency when that goes down. Because if you're an adult and you're in Denver, an hour, 35, 45 minutes away at your office, and you get a CodeRED notification of a wildland fire impending upon your community, and you got a kid that's home alone, and they're not notified, what's your thought now? Your thought is now that you got to rush back in and try and get your kid. And we're trying to evacuate an entire community, and we're trying to get resources in to be able to suppress a fire. Those plans, if you take a look through the material that's been laid out today, I'm more than happy to go over that with you individually. Talk about putting together an evacuation plan for people that might be left at home, whether they're elderly or they're young. And having a plan now and having a purpose in place to be able to get around to that maybe is paramount, because trying to figure that out when the emergency is going on is too late. It's like trying to mitigate your home during a wildland fire. You picked the wrong way to do it. You're not going to get it done. To sign up for CodeRED, at the bottom of the screen here, there's the Park County website. It's really a pretty easy program to sign up for. It can be done in just a matter of moments. It can either be done on the line, or it can also be done over the phone. We don't have the phone information up here, but I do believe the phone information is available once you log on. If you want to switch over to that. What is that number, Gene?
719-836-4115.
719-836-4115. And that's just a step-by-step process to go over on the telephone as opposed to doing it online.
So Joe, thank you. Let's have a new voice, much more pleasant voice than Joe. Dr. Craig, what do we do, what do we do about this?
See if I can be loud enough here too. So as these conversations around the County Road 43 and 47 have really taken place over the last few months, as you know, we have a campus, Deer Creek Elementary, with a significant number of students and staff on a daily basis. We have around 500 students in our elementary school, plus staff. Our preschool is there, plus staff, and our bus barn. So we are a very integral and invested partner as we look at fire mitigation and what we do. We do have an emergency crisis manual response plan for our district that involves or addresses all kinds of disaster and emergency preparedness. One of the things that Dr. Wolpole shared with me as I was transitioning in last summer is that it's really time to update that crisis manual. And so we have been in that process all year, and we have been, we actually began that process with an audit of the Colorado School Safety Resource Center. They audited, gave us feedback, actually gave us feedback that we have a very good district and school plan, and then gave us suggestions on how to be even better. Wildfire is one of those components. So as we've been engaging in these conversations around County Road 43 and 47, we've specifically been talking about what happens during the various time periods of the day when we have students. So if we're picking up students, if we have them in school or we're transporting home, what happens at those different types of intervals when we have students? Of course, the most important time, I mean, they're all important, but when we are actually in school and we have everybody in the building, if a wildfire happens and we need to evacuate, we've been talking about, all right, how many buses does that take to quickly get everybody off property, and how many drivers do we need? We need 6 buses, we need 6 drivers. We have 4 licensed drivers at all times on property. We have another teacher who has recently acquired his license, and we're working on the 6th. push comes to shove, somebody will drive the bus, rest assured. I'm probably not supposed to say that, but Joe has said that to me, so I'm just saying what he said. We will move kids. We've talked about some different routes depending on where the fire is, and we have locations, depending on the fire, we have different locations identified so that we can notify parents where they can come to get their child. Reunification is a very important process during that time because we actually, have students in our custody, so to speak, and so we need to make sure when reunification with family happens that, we can account for that child as we hand them over. So that's probably the process we're working on the most right now. Reunification has had the most recent development in better procedures out of the standard response protocols in school and safety emergencies. And so we actually are going to start quite a bit of work in our district next year on strengthening those reunification processes. If it is before school and we have not yet picked up your child, they are in your realm. You need to have a plan with your child. As Joe was talking about CodeRED and our middle school students, that was an excellent point. We will use our summer sign-off newsletter. We'll use that as a key communicator in our community to remind parents, please sign your children up with their phone for CodeRED because certainly middle schoolers are home and may run into that situation. But I can't stress enough is that before school, before we pick up your child, and after we drop them off, it's the parent responsibility. Please have a plan. Please make sure that they know where to go. They know a neighbor to get to. If they're on that drivable range, do they actually know where a key is? Could they get them and their younger siblings out? I'm not encouraging that. I'm just saying you might want to have a plan. And neighbors involved, especially if you're working in the Denver area. You might not be able to get up here. So it's a partnership. We're working on our piece while we have students, but we need the parents to also take care of those wraparound hours. Am I forgetting anything? Well, I guess I am forgetting. One thing I would like to say is really a kudo to our middle school teachers and our program. We have Paul back here with our student demonstrating today. He did a great job. And we've been integrating more awareness and more fire science education in our programming. If you're going to live in this area, many of our kids grow up here. They love this area. They're going to spend their whole life in this type of environment. Those are wonderful skills. We are looking at expanding our STEM, science, technology, engineering, and arts. We're actually going towards STEAM, mathematics program, and environment is a definite conversation with teachers. How do we extend those types of concepts to all of our children around learning when you live in an environment and have weather systems like we do? It's phenomenal learning for kids, and so we're taking advantage of that. But integrating that into our educational programs is another way that we contribute and become a relevant partner in that education. Anything else?
Thank you. So, I just want to add, after we're done today, you do have the science, kids science program display out in front. There's a video that they did of their science project. It's very, very cool. So if you have the time, please stop by and watch that. So, here we are. Oh, question? Yes.
I would like to address the school board here. I live right off of 42 myself, and what I want to say to you is the county commissioners have instructed the highway department that no trees are to be cut any place in the county. This is what I've been told. And my advice to you is you need to address the county commissioners. Those trees along 43, if they catch on fire, will not get any buses down that road, period.
Let me address that. One of the things that we started and founded here in North Park County is a Fire Safe Council. Founding members are the 3 3 Firewise communities in North Park County, which is KZ Ranch, Robin Davis here from Deer Creek Valley Ranchos, and Kathy Lower, who's out there someplace, there she is, from Woodside 2, 3, and 4. Our group met with the county commissioners about, I think it's been 3 weeks now, and we were concerned about just that. We think one of the big gaps in planning, in emergency planning in the county, and especially in our part of the county, is fire mitigation on the county road right-of-ways. You're absolutely right. If we look at the 43, 47 corridor, and that's not the only one we should be considering, but we got 2,100 homes there. We have a elementary school with 500 kids and staff and more at risk. We have a Girl Scout camp with 200 kids and staff at risk along that road. It's 9 miles from the Delaware Fire Station to the Harris Park Fire Station. There's about 3 miles intermittent on that right-of-way where you have heavy fuel loads on either one side or both sides of the road that will shut it down. And so one of the bigger concerns is just that. We can figure out how to get 6 buses on the road, but they might not be able to get out. So they might have to head the opposite direction. There's an escape route through a private ranch, but that's a 2-track. That's not someplace you're going to take a school bus or 200 or 300 vehicles trying to get out, including RVs and people pulling horse trailers. It's just going to be a mess. It's going to be a disaster. So the only way we can fix that, really get that fixed, is to mitigate that right away. And the commissioners have agreed that the best organization to do that is Platte County Fire Protection District, because they have the resources, the tools, and the fire science knowledge to know what to do. So that may be true on state roads, but on county roads, we have a green light to take care of that situation.
When is that going to take place?
We're waiting on funding. All it takes is money.
I will get back to that at another point in the presentation, but that's a great point to bring up, and we brought it up to Dr. Carrie as well, so she's aware that school buses may not be able to go the direction we want them. Ready to go. How are we doing? Does anybody need a bathroom break? I got at least one digest. Let's take 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. We'll start with a really cool video, and wrap this up.
The school has 75 acres of property on Rosalie Road. A group of parents and community members put together a 501(c) called BOERA, Bailey Outdoor Education Recreation Area. Excuse me, I'm not a great public speaker. You ever have that? Anyways, the goal is to serve the school district and present activities and revenue back to the school district under the school's leadership. From that, we have currently a 20-hole disc golf course. I'm having the worst time. Is it? I'm just like,
We have some property you can go walk on.
I need it. So come out to the Rosalie property and hike on the almost 6 miles of trails, or play 20 holes of disc golf. It's a fee-based trust system, and there'll be more signs up here in the next coming week. We've generated quite a bit of money already, and from donations from the chamber, the hundo, and people putting money into the contribution box. So we're here today to donate to the Jeff Davis Scholarship Foundation. And Joe, you want to come up and explain what that is?
The Jeff Davis Memorial Scholarship Fund, thank you, sir. I like the paper.
Well, they're little.
The big ones are fun to play. The Jeff Davis Memorial Scholarship Fund was founded 7 years ago when Chief Davis died of brain cancer. The premise behind that scholarship fund is to be able to provide secondary or college level education to graduates of Platte High School as it relates to fire science programs. So we've had a lot of our students that have graduated from our school district that have gone on to obtain degrees in fire science, whether that be on the structural side or in wildland fire firefighting. We have a wildland fire module. Our leader is here today, Shelby Edwards. Shelby's married to Chief Davis' daughter. We got a grandkid coming soon. Congratulations. But this just gives long-term opportunity to the kids that are brought up into this community to also participate in fire suppression and to be able to give back to their community. And then this is just one way of our community supporting our own. So thank you guys. We appreciate it. Thank you guys.
Oh, it's already signed. Thank you, that's all. Okay, back to ready, set, go. So we're going to begin talking about what we can do as individual property owners to mitigate our property, plan for evacuation. And again, we can't say enough up here. Go early, just don't wait. Without further,
I got very panicked when I could see flames right behind our house on the hills, on the ridge, and that's when I started getting ready.
I ran upstairs long enough to get my purse and my car keys, and by the time I ran downstairs, our house was on fire.
The winds were out of control.
It's amazing how fast the whole thing happened.
It was a blizzard of embers.
When the embers started flying in big chunks of them, that's when we really panicked and we said, now it's time to go.
I told my daughter, pack things like you are not going to come back.
It was absolutely, it was like Armageddon.
Wildfires can be as unpredictable and uncontrollable as the winds that often drive them. Fire moves dangerously fast. It is wild, powerful, and erratic. You never know when or where a fire will start or end. Homes near natural areas, what firefighters call the wildland urban interface, are beautiful places to live. The natural beauty of these areas adds to the quality of life, but not without risk. Fires are a part of their ecology. Living near the wildland means living with the threat of wildfire. That's why we're introducing the Ready, Set, Go program, a wildfire action plan that gets you, the resident, involved early on in protecting your home. We are going to teach you how to properly prepare your house, your family, and pets for the next wildfire. Our goal is to have residents following our evacuation orders early with the knowledge that they've done everything they can to protect their homes. There are two major ways to make your home wildfire ready so you can go early as the fire approaches. The first step in preparation is adding or retrofitting your home with fire-resistant building construction features.
Hardening the home is a term that we're using for taking those measures necessary to protect your home from flames, radiant heat, and ember intrusion.
To get more information on making your home and property wildfire ready, check with your local fire department. The other step in preparing for a wildfire is creating defensible space.
Defensible space is a buffer between the flaming front and your home. By keeping the vegetation down and away from your home, this allows for reduction of direct flame impingement on your house.
Firefighters always recommend that you comply with any evacuation order and go early. Staying and ignoring an evacuation order may be a fatal mistake. Most brush fire fatalities occur when people evacuate too late and are overtaken by a fast-moving fire. To avoid this, be ready for evacuations well before they are ordered.
So that's why we're talking to you today, is to let you know that get out early. Don't stay. Don't think you're going to survive in these environments. It's not going to happen.
Leaving early doesn't just give you, your family, and pets the best chance of survival, it also leaves the roads open for firefighters to move around more freely.
When we're looking at an evacuation, we have to give ourselves enough time for that entire area to evacuate. So you can't look at it as just how long is it going to take me personally to evacuate, because you're not accounting for a lot of different things that could potentially go wrong.
When I see all the things that were melted, in our case, we would not stay.
It's not important to me. My house is perishable, and I have good insurance, but all that means I just want to take care of it.
A fire is not worth your life.
In the end, remember, your safety and the safety of your family should be your #1 priority. It's a high-risk gamble to stay during a wildfire. Know all the consequences of staying and everyone it affects. The best bet is to get your home wildfire ready now. Be set when the fire comes and go early.
Well, that's sobering. Joe, you want to talk a little bit more about?
Sure. We can go ahead and bring the lights back up. I'm not afraid to talk to the bear. The Ready, Set, Go program is a program that we started participating in as a fire district about 3 years ago. About 15 years ago, we started participating in Firewise Communities USA. And as John has mentioned, we currently have 3 active Firewise communities in the Bailey area, and we would like to see more. We have obviously other subdivisions within the community that would benefit from the processes and the programs available through Firewise. Well, Firewise is really only the beginning step. And on years like this year, where we had an amazingly high moisture content filled winter. We had a lot of late snowstorms that brought a lot of good precipitation to our community, meaning that we're probably not going to see some of the early fire seasons that we've seen in the past, whether that be the snaking fire, the high meadow fire, hanging fire, you name the season, we've had our share of them. If you've lived here long enough, you've seen those. And they will come back. It will happen again. It may not happen this June, it might happen this October. Depending on the weather patterns of the summer, whether or not we get good monsoonal flow that continues our vegetation to continue to have high moisture content, we may not see a fire season at all this year. That would be great, because that would give everybody in this room the opportunity to prepare their home to be ready for the next fire season. Because we will have another one, I promise you that. Sitting here this year, watching all the snow, and watching everything green up the way it's going to this year, don't sit back. Don't do what our community has always done. Oh, no fire season this year, we're good, don't need to worry about it. Trying to mitigate your home in the middle of a wildland fire is an impossible situation. You will not get it done, and neither will the firefighters. We don't have time. For the Ready, Set, Go program, taking the time now to prepare your home, whether it's mitigation-wise or construction-wise, as far as building materials, upgrades that we can make. And feel free to ask any questions if you have about that, and or if you'd like us to come by and present to your HOA, feel free to contact me and we'll set that up in a more in-depth program to answer those individualized questions. Defensible space. If we were all to decide to build homes in this community today, we have a program that we began instituting in 2002, which requires new construction mitigation for homes. That's based off of NFPA standard 1144, and what that requires is that we create defensible space zones on our homes when those are constructed. Zone 1 is that immediate zone of 0 to 30 feet. Within that 0 to 30 feet, we recommend that there be no trees remaining in that area. There are some types of trees that grow here locally, aspens being the that we do allow to grow within that home defensible zone. If you decide, you know what, look, I got engaged to my wife under that tree right there, we're not cutting that one down, we really want to keep that one, we can mitigate, or we can modify that situation a little bit and count that tree as a part of the home, and then we move out from that tree 30 feet, 15 to 30 feet. Zone 2 being from 30 to 100 feet out, what we look at there is breaking up the continuity of fuels. As Rex talked about earlier, when we start looking at fire transitioning from a ground fire, something that we can manage and something that we can suppress, as it begins to climb through the ladders and up into the canopy and becoming a crown fire, we cannot suppress those. We cannot stop those. The weather determines where they go and when they go out. I don't care how many airplanes you put on it or how many firefighters you put on it. We don't dictate fires like that. We dictate the outcome. That 30 to 100 foot zone, when we're looking at breaking those up, what we're looking at is taking the blossom of the trees, so where the drip lines of the trees come down, and putting an 8 to 10 foot spacing around those, enabling the fire to not go from ground to ladders to crowns, moving from tree to tree to home, but you may see isolated torching. You may see one tree go up, but the possibility of that tree and that sustained crown fire progressing is greatly eliminated, and then gives us the ability to be in that initial 30-foot zone where there's nothing to be able to protect your home more safely and adequately for the fire department. Zone 3 is 100 to 200 feet out, just continuing that entire program and that prescription we've discussed, opening up the canopy, removing the ladder fuels, and the ladder fuels would be the smaller regen trees. Some of the new baby trees that are coming in, we don't need 5,000 of those on our property, maybe a couple, 15 or 20 here and there, just to regenerate as your stand ages, but not a continuous fuel bed of those that takes the fire from the grasses to those smaller trees into the continuous fuel model of the upper wings of the canopy. The Set Go program has been published for free for wildland firefighting departments and the urban interface. Does everybody know what the urban interface is with it? Anybody in here not know what it is? You live it. Basically, you've got a forest that we build homes in. And your home is nothing more than another fuel model. It's built of sticks, and it can and it will burn. I promise you that. So preparing your home off the mitigation program that we just discussed and/or construction updates, hardened type materials such as Trex decking, composite roofs, stucco siding, metal roofs, those types of things are all things that we can discuss. But taking the next steps with the Ready, Set, Go program. Every day when we're on a wildland fire, we're issued an action plan. And it is basically our daily duties and our tasks that are assigned to firefighters. Because we operate in a fairly chaotic world that's continuously changing. And for us to try and manage that on the fly becomes very difficult unless we have steps that help us stay organized and planned and knowing what we're doing. And that's exactly what this plan here will do for you and your family. Gives you an emergency contact list, gives you a pre-designated area for folks to evacuate to. Dr. Craig mentioned that we may not have kids that were necessarily wanting to drive, but if your choices are your teenage child sitting at home and burning, or your teenage child getting in your second car and driving to Loaf and Jug or to the fire station, let's go ahead and make that plan. And let's make sure that plan is known to them and they understand that plan. They're not driving to Denver, they're not driving, we're not going places. This isn't an everyday occurrence. This is Armageddon that just happened in our backyard. And mom and dad are an hour away. They will not get home before then. There's other opportunities before we decide having our kids driving cars. Next door neighbors are good options, folks that may stay home during the summer. And make sure that once that contact is made, once little Billy or Susie goes over to the neighbor's house, make sure that that phone call is made, that they're with the neighbors. And that evacuation plan is being carried out. The neighbors are taking them where you expect them to go. Dr. Craig talks about a reunification program and process. Where do we take the kids as a school district? It's the same thing when we're evacuating a subdivision or a community and you may or may not be home. where do you expect those kids to go and where do you expect them to be? And that's a part of the plan. That's a part of your pre-plan that tells them what they're going to do. When the decision to go comes, it's too late to be writing down all of these plans. We discussed level 1, 2, and 3 evacuation notifications. Your family needs to be aware of what level 1, level 2, and level 3 means. And you guys need to set trigger points for when you expect your family to be evacuated. Do you expect your family to evacuate at level 1? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that for you. We can sit down and have that discussion on an individual basis and maybe come to a little bit better understanding for you. But it's not a cookie cutter answer for everybody in the room. Level 2 is everybody needs to be on the move. We all need to be leaving. And level 3 is, again, it's too late. You should have already left because we're going to be looking for safe haven at that point as well. Firewise Communities, what, you got that? Got it? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
When you're in a level 1
Yeah.
evacuation plan, one thing, I don't know where I learned it, maybe in one of the different classes, but it was recommended that you're getting your things together, you're perhaps getting ready to take off anyway, even though you don't really need to. You put your blinds up, curtains out of the way, you move your wood furniture away from the windows, because you don't want the fire to explode within the house because you've got lots of...
This time of year is when we need to start looking at getting ready. Meaning making plans for where your important documents are and knowing where they're at. Making plans for knowing where your wedding dress was that is irreplaceable, that you're not willing to sacrifice. And having those things organized and ready to go. Is today the day you want those in the trunk of your car? No, but you want to have a plan on the list of them and know where they're at. As we start transitioning more into fire season and conditions become more readily available for a wildland fire, red flight warning days. Do you guys know what a red flight warning day is? That means we have a high propensity for a fire to occur, and when it does occur, it is going to be a large fire. We will have very little success in suppressing that fire. On those days, those are the days you might want to take all that stuff that you had gotten ready and made the list of, and just go ahead and move it to the trunk of your car. Have it there, have it ready. Hopefully you don't need to evacuate, but if you do, you don't need to worry about where all that stuff is. It's on your list. It's just packed up in your car and it's ready to go. And when the evacuation notice comes, you just get in the car with you and the kids and your dog and leave. Yes, sir?
If it came to an when it comes to an evacuation, what would you want done with the inflammables that we have to leave behind, like gas or
If you have time, if you can flag those and make a notification list, one thing that the Ready Set Go program discusses is making a list ahead of time. That way, when the fire department shows up and you've got 5,500 pounds of TNT in your shed out back, you put a little note on your door that says, hey, don't go to the shed. There's 5,500 pounds of TNT in that. We know where that is. Trying to do that on the day the wildland fire is coming through, too late. You're not going to have time. Prioritize that now and make those lists now.
When you get an evacuation notice, let's say through CodeRED,
yes, sir.
What's the time frame that you need to think about as a homeowner? I mean, is that when you get that notice, does that go now?
A level 1 notification is informing you that there's an evolving situation in the area. That may or may not to you mean go now. To somebody else in the room, that may definitely mean I need to go. Somebody may have sensitive lungs to smoke and issues. Take them additional time. They have livestock, they have cattle, whatever. If they need extra time to load them and go.
Just,
yes, sir.
can I add to this? While it's fresh in everybody's mind, everybody's been following the fires up in Canada. They've issued the warning to say when they leave. Now, how long has that been going on now? Over a week, right? Maybe a little bit more. And there were people last night on the news saying we couldn't get out, the gas stations were out of gas, we couldn't get water. We're all supposed to be responsible adults here. When you know that there's that size of a fire, that it's affecting the country, not just the community, you got to man up and say, hey, I'm not waiting for them to say, hey, it's level 3, we have to get out of here. I'm packing my stuff up, everything. You have a lot of time now to pack up everything that you want to take and leave. Get ahead of the crowd. Don't get stuck in the toll booth.
there were accidents that were stopping people from moving. So these are just recommendations, these levels. Don't wait till it gets to level 3 and the police officer is knocking on your door saying you gotta go. Take that advantage, pack your stuff up, and leave and go someplace else, and you can always go back later on. But that was the big thing I was getting from the news last night, that people were complaining. Well, it's not the emergency people's fault that you didn't leave a week ago when you saw it was roaring down on the community.
Yes, ma'am.
So what if we get a notification by phone or by email from the sheriff's department saying that there's a fire in your area, and then the fire department's on scene, and that's all it says? Doesn't say possibility of evacuation or anything.
First thing that I would suggest you do is go to, there's a couple of websites that can be checked. The state of Colorado has a website called ColoradoWildfire.com. You can go to that and it will give up-to-date information as it is made known.
What do you mean, like where you can see it?
Your app where you can see it, you're looking under your door to see it.
It's right beside us, and all we get is there's a fire in your area.
How comfortable do you feel with that? To you, is that a decision point, a trigger point for you and your family to leave?
I was like, let's go, but it didn't say that. It just said, it was just notification
Correct.
there's a fire in your area.
And that might be the early stage, that might be our initial attack phase. We're just showing up on scene. All we know right now is somebody saw a fire or smoke. So, you know, Shelby and his crew, or me and an engine, or a sheriff's deputy might be showing up on scene, and they look out the window and they're like, yep, there's wildland fire, and it's in this area. Let's get an early notification out to KZ Ranch that there's a wildland fire, and depending on the area, we have units on scene. As quickly as we can update that, we will. But one thing that we learned from, I'll just name it and use it, the Lower North Fork fire, was people got complacent in seeing smoke and fire in their backyard, and they waited, and they should have left. We can make the assertion and the statement that, you know, dispatch didn't notify them in time, fire department didn't notify them in time, sheriff's department didn't get them out of there in time. If you're looking out your back window and you see a fire and you're uncomfortable with that, leave. Do I have to call you and tell you that's bad? You know, I may not know you. You might be the first person to notice that. So, I mean, there's some personal accountability in society that we seem to have shirked, and we want to blame everybody else for it. So to answer that question, if you see a fire and you don't feel comfortable with it, leave. Who cares if you go up to Loaf and Jug and spend $10 for nothing? At least you did.
Yeah, Joe, I'd like to make a comment to that. Not to do with Park County, but with Jeff County. So years ago, there was a fire down near Conifer that was started by the state.
It was a Lower North Fork.
Right. Anyways, to me, the dispatchers down in Jeffco County did not give out the correct information to these people. And my suggestion is when there's a fire up here, the fire department takes control of issuing the correct information to the dispatchers so they can relay it.
We do that.
But Jeffco County, as far as I'm concerned, they're responsible for those deaths.
We do that.
They give out the wrong information.
But also, my job as a firefighter is suppression.
Right.
It's not evacuation. I will put out the initial notification. I'll call fair claim. We're actually going to do a drill here in the ranchos. I need to discuss with you a potential reschedule date for Jim 11th. That gets us through the weekend. And I would invite anybody that's interested in the evacuation process and how those decisions are made to come to the fire station and watch them. Because we will audibly go through the discussion as a firefighter with the communications center. They will set off the emergency CodeRED notification, and we will have law enforcement officers on scene in the part of the subdivision that is being evacuated. We can't do the whole community. It's just not a realistic. But that would answer a lot of your questions and concerns. And we learn from those opportunities. I mean, unfortunately, it cost 28 homes and 3 lives. Most importantly, it cost us 3 lives. 28 homes will get rebuilt. They will. The 3 lives never will. But we learn from those things. And just to place blame solely upon communications, I get it. But I also get that one of the families that was burned over in that knew for 48 minutes, based on a recorded conversation with their pastor, that they needed to be evacuating. they wait.
In addition to that, I would like to say, there's a state agency that does the control burns throughout the state. And I don't know who's exactly responsible, but that fire down in Concord, at the time, it was so dry up here, nobody should have given permission to that fire burn to the control. And my thoughts on that are, if this state agency comes in and says they want a controlled burn of a certain area, until they get your permission, they're not to light one match on that fire.
And, you know, we've got more that we need to kind of cover on this, but Rex could probably speak a little bit better as a type 1 burn boss. We don't just decide to go out and light fires in the woods to see how it goes. There's actual prescribed areas and a lot of science and information that goes into that. Were there poor decisions and poor judgments made upon that particular fire? Yeah, like Rex said, you can only run so many prescribed fires before water gets away from you. It's gonna happen.
Well, what I'm saying is that agency, that state agency should have your permission before they start any of those control burns.
That state agency no longer has any responsibility as far as it concerns fire. They now manage trees, and that's it. The Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control is now that agency. So we'll move on to this though.
Okay. So Firewise. This is a federally recognized program. It's really aimed at, instead of like Ready, Set, Go, an individual property, this is aimed at a subdivision. And aimed at getting people working together to mitigate their entire subdivision. I just want to talk briefly about what I think is important, based on my experience. I live at Casey Ranch. We did a lot of fire mitigation work there using a state forest restoration grant, and as a result of that, became a Firewise community. If you want to know more about becoming a Firewise community, after our presentation today, go to our Firewise table, talk to Kathy Lohr about getting help from our organization to coach you on how to become a Firewise community. But these are kind of the highlights for me that I've learned from our experience. One is it helps build community. I think it's the one thing that we've done in our community that really got people together. People really want to be left alone up here. We move up here in the woods and, that's it. We live in a beautiful place, no bother me, especially now with an HOA. The picture here on the right is a work day that we had. About 30 people showed up that day, worked 7 acres. These are people that, some of them are in the room today, wouldn't normally even talk to each other or meet each other. But as a result of doing the work that we did in our neighborhood, now we've gotten to know our neighbors on a first-name basis. So if we had an emergency in the neighborhood, I think we pull together and do a much better job of helping each other. The other thing about community here is this is a 7-acre parcel. We probably took over 100 trees out of this parcel. If the property owner had to pay somebody to do that work, it would have been like $10,000. All it cost her was feeding all of us several times. But we did this on several properties. So by ganging together, many hands make short work. We were able to do a lot of work. We have about over 1,000 hours of volunteer time put into this project. So we're able to help each other out, save each other quite a bit of money because we have this free labor helping each other, and we got a lot done. We probably took 100 homes in our neighborhood. We probably took over 700 trees out and shipped it all the way to the mountains in a slash that we shipped it in. Improves resale value. One of the things I noticed that after we became a Firewise community, if a home was listed in our neighborhood, the realtor touted the fact that this was a Firewise community. It was safer relative to fire, and I think that's a big deal. Triage. Put your subdivision in a better triage position. So if there's a big event, the guys that are going to be fighting these fires are going to have limited resources. It may be much bigger than they can handle. So they're going to do triage. They're going to try and save the homes that have been mitigated. They're going to try and save the neighborhoods that have been heavily mitigated, that have got this Firewise status. It's just normal. They're not going to put their lives on the line for a home that's got, trees, fuel loads coming right up to the house and 15 cords of firewood under the deck. They're just going to walk away from it. So it puts your whole neighborhood in a better position to be saved if something happens. The other thing is improved insurability and in some cases reduced rates. My insurance company, USAA, it's the only one I know of that does this, they will give a discount to a home that's been mitigated within a Firewise community. And with that segue, I've got Ms. Carrie Marsh here to scare us a little bit about the insurance situation. Carrie's going to spend maybe 3 or 5 minutes talking about the lay of the land for insurance right now in the Wildland Fire interface. And then after we're done here, if any of you want to stay, she'll get into more detail.
Yeah, this should only be 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
Basically, what I'm going to tell you is, number one, insurance companies usually run 15 to 20 years behind being where they need to be. I'm also going to tell you what your options are, what some of your options are, besides mitigation and besides price, on what you need to be talking to your insurance agent about. And as a comment, as far as the when you evacuate, when you do not evacuate, my basic philosophy as an insurance agent is better safe than sorry. That means you have your important papers, hopefully in a little fireproof that you can grab and go. Always be ready in advance, so when it's time, we've been evacuated 2 or 3 times since I've been up here. I've been up here 30 years, almost 35. When it's time to go, it's time to go. When you see that fire ~1/4 or you get a call that says there's one in your area, go. I'll talk more about it later.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Chad.
So, moving on, Roger. So one of the things that's happened here recently, the 3 Firewise communities in North Park County have gotten together and we have formed the North Park County Fire Safety Council. What we're going to be focusing on, here's the list, education. So we'll have a website, we'll have a quarterly newsletter. You can sign up for that newsletter out in front. We'll be doing Firewise coaching, so other subdivisions that would like to become Firewise, we will help you run that, or navigate that route. We're also actively seeking fire mitigation grants. So right now we're working on a FEMA grant for $300,000 to mitigate 150 acres on and around the Deer Creek Elementary School. That will include part of Mill and R&D, part of the Girl Scout Ranch, and a couple of other private properties. One of the things that we'll be able to do is mitigate the 43 right-of-way within that zone, and hopefully make it easier for school buses to actually get out of Dodge. The other thing we're doing is we'll be lobbying county, state, and federal government. So the first thing that we did, Kathy, I missed something, didn't I?
I just wanted to mention, I'm Kathy Lauer, and I'm the president of the HOA in units 2, 3, and 4 in Woodside, and I'm here with other members of my Firewise committee, which also includes units 5 and 6. Just wanted to mention in terms of the grants that our Firewise committee has applied for a grant through the BLM. We have not heard yet whether we will get it, but it If we do, we've applied for $100,000 to work with the Platte Canyon fire module to clear the rights of way on the county roads in the Woodside area as well, particularly Mount Evans Boulevard, because we have the same kind of problem that John has been speaking about with roads 43 and 47, where a one-way in, one-way out, heavily timbered road. So we are also working along with John and as part of the Fire Safe Council to get grants for that area of the county as well.
Thanks, Kat. I want to talk about this picture here for a moment. You can barely see. Would you dare show me someplace? All right. We have, and we're fortunate to have this, but we have a Wildland fire module, I think is what it's called. And it's 12 people? 12 people. So these people are not funded by our taxes. They're self-funded. During fire season, they go out under contract all around the country and fight fires under contract, and that's how they fund themselves. When it's not fire season, they're back here doing mitigation work using grant money. They did the work under the FEMA grant, the Deer Creek Valley Ranchos. They would be the crew doing the work to mitigate county road right-of-ways once we get funding for that. As we go back here to talk about seeking grant money, we're certainly going to be out begging for money to the county, to the state, and to the federal government. But we may have to do this ourselves. One of the things we've been talking about as a Fire Safe Council, and I'm going to use 4347 as an example. One way in, one way out. By the way, one more good reason to go when you get the first call, because in the second call, that right-of-way may be on fire, and you won't be able to get out. And it will be messy. You'll have vehicles on 43 pulling trailers that can't even turn around. That's just one more reason to get out early, and one more reason to get that right-of-way and other critical right-of-ways mitigated. One of the ideas we've been kicking around, we've got 2,300 homes off of 4347. If each of those homeowners, property owners, kicked in an average of $20, that'd probably be enough to mitigate that right-of-way. So we're talking about maybe doing crowdsourcing for that. Our taxes don't pay for that. These guys our taxes pay for these guys to respond to medical emergencies and wildfire and structure fire emergencies, not to mitigate the right-of-way. We have resources, but we need to come up with the money to pay for that some way. The county road and bridge, they don't have the money to do it either. Very little of our taxes actually go to road and bridge. Most of it comes from fuel taxes, state fuel taxes. In fact, I look at their budget and it's kind of a small miracle that our roads are passable. So if we want to come together as a community, that's one way to do it, is to basically do crowdsourcing. Everybody chips in $20 and we get the work done, or get these guys getting out on the roads and getting that work done, and allow the school buses to be saved. So anyway, that's one of the things we're looking at. Most people don't know about our Wildland fire module. We're very lucky to have that here in our community, and I'm very grateful that we're here. This is kind of hard to see. This is our last slide. We're just about to wrap this up. There's something called the Air Smart Fuels Management Project. You may have heard that, and it goes all the way, this map is hard to see, but it goes all the way from Stoughton State Park to Shawnee. That's all been mapped out and planned for mitigating the national forest adjacent to our communities, our various communities. Phase 1 of that actually took place just outside of Harris Park. They did about 1,000 acres. Actually, the light clear bank really made the Harris Park community much safer. The next phase of that is called the Deer Creek phase, which is right behind Casey Ranch. I just talked with the Forest Service last week. They will finish their prescriptions. They've been working on this for like 5 years. And it's always been, maybe next year, maybe next year, maybe next year because of the funding machine. But they're finishing up their prescriptions because they had to change how they're going to do it. They're going to mitigate somewhere between 300 and 500 acres. They have the money. It's actually going to be funded by Denver Water. Denver Water will do that just to protect the watershed. So the money is in the bank, so to speak. They expect the work to be done in 2017 or 2018. It would mean that Forest Road 101 going back into Slaughterhouse will be closed for a while. And so that's at the high level. That we talked about fires getting started back in the forest and embers flying as much as 2 miles away. Getting that work done will make all of us safer. Yes?
John, I have a question or want to address a problem for Rex since he's worked with the federal government. Is we have a lot of national forest land within Park County. The problem I see with the national forests are that, the conditions are really bad, and yet they permit campfires, okay? People don't watch campfires. The embers are all over, they start fires. If you get a major fire within a national forest, you're not going to be able to control it. Not locally. And my question is to you, Rex, is there any program or any avenues for you to address the federal government to eliminate that process where they can have campfires and we can't have anything, and where the local fire department can take over and tell the federal government, no, you're not having campfires. The fire season is too high rated at this time, and we're not having it in this county. Is there anyone you can address or, put that into the process?
Well, when they implement fire bans, they try and ignore political boundaries to a great extent so that it's more uniform over a broad landscape, so it's more easily enforceable. So the fire department, the state, the feds all put their heads together and they introduce a fire ban, different levels of fire bans, and they all agree on it, and they all come together on that, and that's why you see those fire bans. Everybody is doing it in a unified manner. Now, as far as when there's not a fire ban in place, the current legislation allows campfires in the forest. And I think if you try to stop that people would get very upset.
Well, it's either that or my house,
Well, no, I understand your perspective, but their perspective is that it's their forest. And I'm just kind of being a little bit of devil's advocate because I'm living right there too, and there's people that leave abandoned campfires up behind my house, and it really irritates me. But and that's actually illegal for them to do. That's not legal for them to do. When you have a campfire, you can have a campfire up there, but you're supposed to either be there with it or put it out.
And they shouldn't enforce it.
Well, they try to, but okay, so
they don't have the resources.
They don't have the resources.
It's one more reason for us to mitigate our own properties.
Yeah.
Because I think the likelihood of a major event happening and starting in the forest behind us is pretty high. And then the raging embers, the flying embers coming in towards our homes and our properties, if they've got a place to go and start a fire on our property, then that's on us.
Well, what are we going to do if we have a 100,000-acre fire just on the other side of downtown Daly?
In my career here, almost 20 years, I'm not going to say that we haven't had because we have, Buffalo Creek was one. Buffalo Creek did not come out of the Forest Service. Buffalo Creek came out of the private property. So when I look at historical fires in the Platte Canyon Fire Protection District area, and I'll knock on wood because as soon as I say this, we'll have one. The number of fires that we started due to campfires on Forest Service property are exactly 0. We have not had them. It's not to say that it's not a massive liability, it's not a massive issue, it is. It's one that we deal with every year. The Fire Protection District, the U.S. Forest Service, as well as other fire districts that apply us. We spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday out putting out campfires that people will put out. We have the same issue on private land.
Right. Speaking about private land, personally, I have a burn permit for my property, like an open burn in the wintertime when there's snow on the ground.
Right.
But the policy in the county too is if you have a fire ring, I could pretty much burn any time of the year unless you have a total county fire burn.
If we have a district-wide fire ban, they can't burn. And I can decide that today. I can walk outside and say, well, I don't like the way the weather is. You're not having a campfire, so we shut it down.
Well, my suggestion to you is, if the conditions are not good and it's extremely dry out there, fire rings or no fire rings, you should issue a total burn ban for the entire county.
I can't issue one for the entire county. That's more where Gene comes into play and then the county sheriff.
Okay.
I can speak a little, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, because I have this curse, my voice goes about this far. So if I start to trail off, somebody do this, okay? Park County is very diverse climate-wise. It's almost, we have different fuel models, different weather patterns, totally from where we're at here to where I live down in the Guppy area. For instance, my land down there, the ground cover is prickly pear cactus and yuccas because it's so dry. And up here, you don't see much of that. So to just put a blanket fire ban on in the county, quite often is not appropriate. That could be a very potentially devastating situation, like down in my area. You guys could be very lush. In fact, I think it was Joe was just talking, you guys been getting rain and stuff down there. We haven't. We've had some clouds, but we had a 100-acre fire down there for about 3-4 weeks ago because it's so dry down there, and we're not experiencing that up here. So it does, to a point, it does need to go by individual fire districts, and it does reach a point quite often when the county does and is appropriate to put on the county library a burn ban, and it does happen now. So it's an interesting area. So.
Well, can the fire district put a ban on its own area?
Yes. Like I said, and it's not just myself or the chief. Our fire district is manned by 3 shifts. They work a 48-hour shift. Each shift has a captain. If the captain wakes up tomorrow morning and decides that it's too windy, it's too hot, it's too dry, we'll put a burn ban in effect. That burn ban can be in effect for 24 hours, 6 hours, 6 days, 6 weeks, you name the amount of time. When we decide that it's safe and prudent for our district to come out of the burn ban, then we come out of the burn ban. But again, we try and use science. We try and use the numbers and rationale behind it, as opposed to just getting up and saying, well, you know what, there's a bunch of campers coming up today, let's put in a burn ban. That does virtually nothing for where those campers are going. All that does is make everybody in this room extremely mad at me and extremely mad at everybody in campsites on federal forest lands. Because you're looking out your back window, literally in some situations, and you can't have a campfire in your yard, but if you went across the street and went to the campsite that's behind your house, you could. And we have to try and reflect. We have to try and use the same science and the same reasons, but we do look at it a little bit differently. And the reason we look at it a little bit differently is I'm responsible for your safety, both your life and your home. So we do what we feel is prudent to protect us.
How do you notify the residents that there's a bad burn ban on?
The way that burn bans are notified goes about a couple different ways. The Smoky the Bear signs coming in and out of the community, we'll put up our burn ban signs. We'll put that information up on our Facebook page, which if you have Facebook or you don't follow the Platte Fire Protection District, I encourage you to. We update that thing at a minimum 3 to 4 times a week with community information and fire safety information. Another way that is also updated is on our Platte Fire Protection District website. That is not as readily updated. It's a little bit more time consuming and tedious. That's updated probably about once to twice a month, whereas that Facebook page is updated probably once to twice a week. It's just the ease of management of why we utilize Facebook as opposed to the website. That information is also available on your burn permit. There's a phone number at the county that you can call. Basically, it will identify the districts that are under burn bans and the districts that are not. Like Gene alluded to, we have 5 different fire protection districts in the county. And just because District 5, which is Platte Canyon, is under a burn ban, doesn't mean that District 4, which is Northwest Fire over in Fairplay, is going to be under a burn ban. We're completely different microplanes.
Why don't you just go red?
Couple of reasons on why we don't use CodeRED. First and foremost, I don't own it. Secondarily, there is a large fee that is included into that. Every time I request a CodeRED notification go out to a geographic area, there's a dollar value associated to that we all get to pay for, which it is a worthwhile notification system. But if I started using CodeRED every time we were notifying you of something, it wouldn't mean anything when the actual notification came in. It's just the way society is. I can't help that. There was another question. Yes?
Could you talk about slash collection?
Slash collection? We've got a couple of different avenues that we're looking at for slash collection as we move forward. And one I don't have a whole lot of information on other than I know where the location will potentially be. The county is working with the Coalition for the Upper South Platte to put in a permanent slash collection site behind the mud hole ball fields. Logistically, how you get into that, where it's going to be located, I don't know all of that yet. I've heard rumors of fees of anywhere from $5 to $15 a truckload. That does include those who have to load it up and take it out to those locations. The fire district, in conjunction with the Park County Emergency Service Council, which we're a part of, 2 years ago purchased a large chipper. We don't own that chipper, and we don't have access to it 365 days a year. I had discussions with the Fire Safe Council here in the last week or two, last month, reference putting together a community-wide chipping program that would be organized through the individual HOAs in conjunction with the Fire Council, and then referred back to our Wildfire module. There would be a cost associated with that. To what level that cost would be, I can't put an exact dollar value on it. Chief, do you have a dollar value that would potentially cost up to?
I have a dollar value.
John does.
The other way to get chipping done, at some point you're going to create so much slash that putting it in a pickup truck and taking it someplace is just not going to make sense. You'll have mountains of it, and you do a lot of work within the community. Coalition for the Upper South Platte has had a program going for a long time. It's basically $600 a day. They bring in a crew, you provide volunteers, and you can get rid of a lot of slash in a pretty short amount of time, but a hard day's work. Talking with our fire chief, he's agreed to match that program. We'll have a deal where it's $600 for, and that's basically $100 an hour. Except they'll go one better. You stage your slash, they'll come in and chip it for you. we don't have to help them chip it. So it's for 6 hours of chipping, $600 for 3 hours of chipping, $300. They'll come out and take a look at your slash piles beforehand and give you an estimate of what it's going to cost. But this is a way for, especially a community or a larger property, let's say you got 5 to 10 acres, you can create an awful lot of slash on a property that size that you're going to need a chipper to come in. I think this is a great way to do it. It's a great service for Platte Canyon Fire to be providing our community to get rid of this stuff, because when you start doing mitigation on your property, the most difficult issue is what do I do with all the slash? You know, the firewood, not a problem. You can give that away. But the slash is the biggest issue once you start doing some serious work, and this will get it done. And thanks to Platte Fire, we got a good way to do it.
Another question?
We got people in the back here. Lady in the back with the green vest on.
Yes. I have a question about Berlin. Is there a fuels management idea, project in the works, or coming for that? Because some of us, like myself personally, we live right next to the pipe, so on 2 sides. And is there any project in the works for a long-term management?
There's no project in the works right now. I think Berlin is one of the communities we'd like to see become a Firewise community. So if you would talk to Kathy Lower at the Firewise desk afterwards, and we'll see how we can help and get together with your community and get that started.
Real quick on that, just to touch base on that as far as the priorities set forth by the Community Wildfire Protection Plan that John brought up. We utilize that document and the science behind it to prioritize where the work needs to get done first, but that also helps us obtain funding. So when we go to, whether it's FEMA or Colorado State or you name the grant funder, and we look at our most extreme areas, fortunately for you, you live in a lower extreme area. That's a moot point, really, because we have some pretty extreme areas. So for me to say that Berlin does not have an extreme fire hazard might be kind of a misstatement in saying that, other than saying that there's higher priorities.
Well,
Because some areas have more dense populations, have one-way in, one-way out roads, and have a higher fuel level.
And having said that, the High Meadow Fire started on Mark Lane.
Correct.
Private lane, not a mile and a half from my house, so.
Yes, ma'am, and I am completely aware of that. But I didn't develop the scientific numbers that are represented in the CWPP, but when we utilize that document, which is how we justify funding for these projects and how we justify priority of which projects go first, that's how we justify that funding. Right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm not arguing that with you. I have friends and family that live in Berlin, and I'm just as worried about them as I am about folks that live at 43, so I completely understand.
In the back.
To offer some suggestions on the 2 questions about notifications, the 285 Tourism Committee not only has a map, but we also created a mobile app. So if you have a smartphone and you download the 285 Tourism mobile app to your smartphone, we send out push notifications because we know those campers are coming up. If there's a burn ban in place, we don't want them burning. So we send out push notifications to everyone who has that mobile app downloaded. So it works just for residents as well. You guys can get the information that you need on there. In addition, we put it up on our website that I own, mymountaintown.com. There's a red flag warning, burn bans, any of that kind of emergency information in place. It's on our emergency page. We also share it to our Facebook page and our Twitter account. You can get push notifications on those too. In addition to, of course, Pine Camp, which has been around forever. Those are your community resources for finding out that kind of information.
So another kind of code red.
Exactly.
Okay.
But local.
Yes. Any more questions? No, Robin.
Say my name. I can't see who's behind it.
Okay, so you see a campfire going
I wouldn't. I live in Bailey. What I would, the way that that system is supposed to happen, yes, you are supposed to have a burn permit for your property. They're free of charge. They can be obtained at the fire station at the top of Crow Hill, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. On that burn permit, there is a 719 number. Gene, do you know it off the top of your head? For burn permit, burn ban information. There's a new, the process has changed in the last 6 months. You used to call dispatch and inform them when you were going to be burning and what subdivision you lived in and fire district. That has changed. There is now a recorded hotline that is updated every day. That number has been updated on your burn permit. If you don't have an updated one, that is available through the fire district, on our website, and on Facebook. Reference the process to go through. You call that 719 number, it will tell you whether or not your district is in a burn ban or not. We are also requesting that if you live within Platte Canyon Fire Protection District and you're going to have a campfire and or if you have snow and you're able to burn splash piles that day, that you call the station and you give us your address, your contact name and information, and the potential duration of your burn. That way, if we decide at noon we're going to go into a burn ban and we need to get in touch with you, we can call you back and tell you to extinguish your fire.
Well, like I said, we had, similar, very close to each other, and I know which one she's talking about.
Right.
If you see someone burning, even in a trash can, burning something, do we call the fire department, what do we do? I mean, because I agree with you, I'm not about to.
Right.
Can we call you and ask, do they have a burn?
You can call the station and you can ask, and I mean, if you happen to know their address or their name, we can look it up. But if we're in a high fire danger day, or if it's a day where you're just like, I know we're under a burn ban, call 911. Calling the fire station, if it's a day like today, the chief's sitting here, Shelby's sitting here, I'm sitting here. We've got a training going on with 15 of our new cadets out doing the Wildland fire, as well as calls going on. And a track meet. There may not be anybody answering the phone today. So your best option is always call 911. Your last option should be calling the station. We're not always there. I mean, we've got limited resources, and believe it or not, we're pretty darn busy with the fire department.
So just call 911.
Call 911. There's some neighbors, if you know your neighbor and you're cool with them and you want to walk over there, that's fine. There's some neighbors I have that I've lived in the ranchos for 30 years. I am not going on their property. Not even invited.
Thank you.
Problem?
So if someone has not had an opportunity to get their property mitigated through, say, one of the grants or other programs we're going, and they just moved in, they want to do mitigation, would the module team be willing to come and mark trees that they could then themselves take down?
We do it a couple of different ways. I'm responsible for doing all of our free fire mitigation plans. So if you want to call the station and schedule that, or I'm very popular for doing this, everybody got a pen? My cell phone number is 303-548-0854. I'm in the station 2 days a week, so trying to get me sometimes is pretty difficult. I will schedule a time to come out and walk your property with you, and we will go over a fuel hazard risk assessment on your property. I will make suggestions to you based upon what needs to get done. We can talk about some possible funding opportunities and or project opportunities that might already be there. And a lot of times that might just be, we don't have the money, we don't have the project, we don't have the time to do it right now, I'm sorry. But we can get you in touch with folks that can. Yes, ma'am. I can come give you a mitigation plan in Jefferson County. It's not, unfortunately, my priority has to be to the taxpayers of our district and our community. If you live in Park County, you're a part of my community. I'll come take a look at it. If it's outside my jurisdiction, I'll do what I can. I'll help you with it. I won't leave you out.
Jeffco does have somebody that'll do that also.
They do.
Yes.
Do you have that information?
The Jefferson County contact information, my suggestion would be,
The name of the Wildland fire officer at Jeffco is Andrew Moyle, M-O-Y-L-E. He will come out, just call the Oak Creek station, he will come out and do an assessment for you.
I'll get information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Joe, what's your cell number one more time, please?
303-548-0854.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to add a couple of things. I don't want to take up the rest of everybody's Saturday. But one thing with the module, that's a 12-person team. They're not funded through the fire department. They're considered, to put it in perspective, they're a special forces guy for our fire department. They don't just cut trees, and they just don't go to wildland fires. When they're on district, they take in medical calls. They help out extra sets of hands on our car accidents. They've been at people's houses doing CPR on them before the ambulance even gets there. We've had them out on the Colorado floods, evacuating people, doing house assessments, building roads just so they can get people in to evacuate them. So they just don't do cutting trees and wildland fires. We've got a whole host of other things that they can do. They're trained to do collapse training, anything like that. And it's an extra 12 set of hands that we have on district when we have a building fire or anything like that. So that crew is very important. Some people don't understand the stuff that they do besides cutting trees and doing wildland fires. The second thing I wanted to bring up, because there's a lot of questions about the levels for the evacuation levels. I'm going to use an example for the last one that we used. I'm just not going to use the address. But I would call Fairplay Dispatch and tell them to issue a level 3 evacuation. They have to leave now for a half-a-mile radius of the address 123 ABC Road. So what they would do is they would plot out a map radius of a half-a-mile of 123A Road, prepare an announcement, and send that announcement out to everybody within a half-a-mile of 123A ABC Road. And it's up to them people to leave now. From there, the Office of Emergency Management, Gene and his people, are made aware of what's going on. There's an evacuation going on. From there, he knows that Joe's busy or whoever's in command of the fire is busy. He will make the determination after the initial leave now evacuation goes out. He has the option to notify within a 3-mile, 5-mile area, whichever he determines. The notice will go out to tell everybody there's a fire in your area. Basically, just notify them that there's a fire in an area. So now you can go out on your porch and you can look. That's where you have to make your own decision whether you're going to pack up all the stuff you want to keep and leave or not. If we expand it to 3 miles, they'll expand it to 3 miles. After the 3 miles is notified, then Gene's people will make another determination if they want to send it out again, that there's a fire in your area beyond the 3 miles, so people can make their own informed decision and not have to wait for us. I can't stress it enough. Don't be the last person to wait till the last second to start packing up stuff, because the last question we ask when the deputy's knocking on your door and you're saying, I'm not going to go or I have to pack, the last thing he's going to ask you is, who's your dentist? Because that's how we're going to identify who you are when you didn't leave in time. And it's pretty abrupt, but it gets the point across to people when they get asked that question. Now they understand how serious the problem is. I want to thank these people up on the stage for taking the time out of their day to do this presentation. And I want to thank everybody that showed up to actually listen and ask questions. There are a lot of good questions. Don't hesitate to call the fire station. Don't call Joe's cell number, but don't hesitate to call the fire station for more information.
So, we have more questions?
No, we don't have another question. We want to draw for the raffle for this summer.
Okay.
So,
we have a raffle for a free address center. And we have a question.
You were going to talk about the back way out?
Okay. Before the raffle, We talked about 43, the problems of 43, not the only, road in our area that needs work, but I think the most critical one. There is an escape route, alternate escape route. It's not a very good one, but if you go into Deer Creek Valley Ranchos, and this is the only way I know, so forgive me, you take Hangman's Road up into Deer Creek Valley Ranchos, you turn right on Vigilante, you take it till it dies, it ends, and there is a locked ranch gate there. In the event of an emergency, hopefully someone is there that has cut the chain with bolt cutters and open the gate. And then there's a 2-track that winds around and gets you to Pine Junction. The problem with that is that it's a 2-track. So, if you've got a 4-wheel drive vehicle and not many other people are trying to go that way, you're probably going to be okay. But if there's 100 vehicles with trailers, pulling horse trailers, RVs trying to get through there, it's just going to be a disaster. Somebody's going to get stuck, and then everybody's stuck out in the forest someplace. So, what we really need to do is get 43, 47, and some of our other critical county road right-of-ways mitigated, so we don't have to worry about them being in flames when people are leaving, when they get the first call, hopefully. And again, if you wait till the second call or the third call, those roads might not be available.
That is not actually an authorized emergency escape route. That's private property.
Yes.
We have no right to go on there if there is a fire, and we have no right to go on there to maintain that. So, you get to the end of that gate and it's locked, you're on your own unless you got bolt cutters. We're in the process of trying to get permission to get access to that property, maintain that property so you don't have to have a 4-wheel drive vehicle. You'll be able to go through there, and we can actually have permission to get it open during an emergency. But that's a long way off. Burgett will tell you that's been years trying to get that to go through.
Right now, it's just really not a viable route, unless it's last case desperation. Let's do the raffle, then I need to recognize some people, and then we'll wrap this up.
We have Vincent Tolpo.
So thank you. I want to thank a couple of people here. Roger, would you stand up? Roger Mays, he lives at Deer Creek Estates, which straddles 43, one of our communities that needs a lot of work. Roger put this whole presentation together. What we plan on doing with this is turning it into a video that we'll put online on the Fire Safe Council's website. We'll put it on Platte Fire District's website as well, so people will be able to go to it and listen to this on their own. I'd also like to thank Kathy Lower and her and her Firewise Committee for putting together all the materials out there. If you're interested in becoming a Firewise community, please talk to them on your way out. Also, we talked about crown fires. If you'd like to know whether your community is at high risk of a crown fire, talk to them. They've got the information at the table out there. Sign up for the newsletter that will be coming out quarterly to keep us informed about what's going on with wildfire in our neighborhood. Our young student who has a display going for the 6th grade science project, I don't know if they're still going to be out there, but if they are, please take a look at what they're doing. Their video will soon be available. We'll be putting that on the Facebook page of Wildfire. So, thank you all for coming.